So today I'm going to explain some of the indicators I use when looking on Yahoo Finance to look at stocks. And this is how I typically look at something with all these indicators right here, but I'll go through what each indicator is. So this is what it would typically look like, and this is how it would look, but I'll just reset this so for the way it would look when you would look. So this is how it looked for you. Now you can always set the date range here. That's 1 day, 5 day, 1 month, 3 month. And you can also set the interval at which it updates, and that actually does make a difference. And you can also change it between line and there's area, which is almost like a mountain graph. And you can look at candlesticks, which will give you a little more information, and just hollow candlesticks, which is a preference versus candlesticks. And there's bar. So on a bar, the left one would be the open, the right one would be the close. So it's showing you the opening and closing price. And the difference between that and a candle is if a candle is green, that means it opened at the bottom portion and closed at the upper portion. And if it's red, it closed at the upper portion. It opened at the upper portion and closed at the lower portion. It's red. That means it went down. So that's just a little more information you get with candles, just compared to. And then colored bars, obviously, see if it starts at the bottom and goes up, it'll be a green bar. It starts at the top and goes down, it'll be a red bar. I usually like to just look at lines sometimes, because I just feel like they're a little easier in your eyes, but you can also look at candlesticks, it will give you a lot more information. But then, so some of the indicators I would like to add, I'll definitely want to add the Bollinger Bands, which were those weird things, so I'll add these first. So I'll just add the Bollinger Bands, just leave everything the way it is, and I'll just hit save. And then have some Bollinger Bands. So usually when something hits the top Bollinger Band, it usually comes down off of that, and once it hits the bottom one, usually comes off the top one. And then it also just puts I believe it's a simple moving average just to the middle of that. And that simple moving average a lot of times will act as a resistance or a support. And then I'm also going to add the MACD, which is moving average daily convergence. And I just leave all these settings default. And there's also the RSI, which is the resistance strength index. Both of these are just showing if a stock is overbought or oversold. So for example, I'm just looking at Netflix here, and if a stock is above 0, that means it's a little overbought, showing that it would go down. And then if it's below the line, it's oversold, showing the stock is going to go up typically. And then if the resistance strength index is down here at like 30, typically if it goes below 30, it's usually a sign of a rebound. Because if you look at this line here, like if we look here, see it hit 30, and then it kind of, it didn't bounce off of that, but it did make a move up. But like here it hits 30, that's the bottom, but it did actually in this case go further down. So it's not always an indication, but sometimes it is an indication of a bottom. And same thing with this here, for example, the MACD actually did kind of show where the bottom was, and then it showed where the top kind of was, but it didn't. I shouldn't say the top actually, because it didn't really show the top, because you could say the top would be here and then it went up here. But some other indicators I use, there's also the vwap, which is volume weighted moving average price. So that just shows based off of the volume, because volume is always a huge factor in price. It'll show you what the volume weighted price should be, and you always know which color thing is which. But up here, see, it shows the VWAP and it shows it's red. So I know down here this red line is the VWAP. And then, so if I were to go to, let's say, a 5-day chart, for example, I could say that Netflix, due to their VWAP, is it's a little overvalued, because I could say the volume weighted moving average price is down here. Usually people will also say if something, people look at the 200-day moving average. So just to add that, you'd want to add a moving average, and this time you actually do need to change something. You have to change the period from a 50-day moving average to a 200-day moving average. And there's simple weighted, but I'll just make it a simple moving average. You can actually change the color too. I'll just leave it as purple. Why not? So then that now is our 200-day moving average. And since it's over 200 days, it's kind of harder to move. But typically, people will say a lot of times if a stock stays above the 200-day moving average that they're bullish on it. aka it's going to go up, and if they say it stays under it and it's following a downtrend under it, then it's bearish. And they usually say, and with the thing I said first, with if it's above, they usually say like it has to have an uptrend too for them to be bullish on it. But then those are just some of the indicators I used to look at, and I like to look at the volume too. And then you can just take all that into account. And then you can't just look at this. Like, for example, if you're really like intent on buying a stock, I would highly recommend just going to Google, search Netflix, and then as soon as you come right here, there's top stories, and then you can hit more about Netflix, and then it brings you to this, and there's this news tab right here, and you can look at all this news, because news is like a lot of price action is due to news. So if you're missing out on the news, you're missing out on so much information. So you got to make sure you're up to date with all the news, and you got to be checking that. And you can even compare them too. You can even do it with back here too. You could comparison. You can compare it versus the S&P 500, for example. And then the S&P 500 is just the biggest 500 stocks in the S&P 500. So that's the graph of the S&P 500, or you could pick any stock you want and compare them side by side on top of each other. So the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq and the Dow are all three. They're pretty good. They show a good reflection of how the market's doing. So if you want to look at how something's doing in relation to the market, and as you can tell, Netflix kind of took some profit off of the market going down, only because the market went down because of the coronavirus. And then you can even look at their financials here too, back in Google. So then there's all their financials. You can look at all their quarterly statements, and if you can look if they're increasing revenue, you can look at their net income, and then it says diluted EPS. EPS is earnings per share. So you want a company that has a good earnings per share, aka high. And you typically want a company with usually over a 5 earnings per share, I'd say. But if it gets too high, it's probably not even, because earnings per share, like there's ways that it could be listed as really high when it's not that high. So you can't always go by earnings per share because sometimes they are highly inflated. But you also got to look at the cash on hand too and the cost of revenue. But cash on hand and cost of revenue are like good signs of you can look at a structured, sturdy business. If they have a lot of cash on hand, you're not too afraid of them going bankrupt or just the business is going to fail. Like Netflix has a lot of cash on hand, so it's not like Netflix is going to randomly fall off the face of the earth and the stock's going to fall to zero. But you just got to make sure you're staying on top of everything. And here you can compare things. So I want to compare it to Amazon. There's the two things compared, two stocks. And it also lists the market cap, employees. But if there's anything else you guys would like to see, please let me know, and I'll definitely make a video on it. And good luck in your trading. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and have a great day.